Mm, Good afternoon. I was like, good after Sunday noon. Good afternoon. Welcome to this lesson today. I'm going to fiddle about with the lights until I can get something that's, um, no. I fiddle about with the lights only because it's really bright in my face. But I also appreciate that if I turn it off, I look like proper, everything's super dark. Hey, Tamiki, Sweet Pea, welcome, honey bunny. And welcome whoever else is watching. I have no clue who is there just yet. We will be having a look. Pepper, hi, Pepper, Sweet Pea, welcome, honey bunny. Oh, this would be a good lesson for you, my dear. Um, and so many people, to be honest with you. It's definitely a good lesson for my ass when I had to go through it too. I was just like, shit. Sometimes that voice in my head that wants to speak, I'm like, why does it sound like a child? It sounds like a teenager. And now I'm like, yes, yes. Let's heal this part. Oh, happy Sunday, sweetheart. Lovely to see you. Hey there, Cassie. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And everybody else who is watching. So hopefully, hey, Charmin, I didn't even see you there. Welcome, Sweet Pea. The last time I went live, it froze. Like I couldn't see anybody who was watching. And I'm like, all right, that it is what it is. But I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to chat and hope that you guys are able to connect and that you are able to come about. If you are having trouble connecting, though, or could you just give me a quick shout out and say hi if you are here? Just because again, I can't really see anybody that is here. It's being really, really silly. Oh, so now I see a few more people. Hey, Karen. Hey, Jared. Lovely to see you, sweetheart. Everybody else who has joined, welcome, welcome, welcome to today's Sunday school session. For grown folk. No religious shit involved, I promise. Hey there, Juan. Welcome, honey bun. Alrighty. I think, what time is it at this very moment? It is 12:02. I think we should just get crack-a-lackin' and get right on into this lesson for today. So, a lot of us, we have the new moon coming up tomorrow. And the new moon, this is not the first time I'm saying this, and it's definitely not going to be the last time I say this, but the new moon, of course, brings the time for us to release a lot of stuff, right? We are planting our seeds as to what we want for the full moon that's going to be coming up in 2 weeks, and having all that bolstered energy really fuel our manifestations. What we want to do, though, is because the new moon is the time of releasing, we want to really get out of, we gotta pull those weeds out. We gotta pull the weeds out of our garden so that the seeds that we are planting are going to come to fruition. Hey, Nicole, sweetheart, welcome, honey bun. So this, I thought, you know what, this is going to be a good thing for some people to kind of have a look at. A lot of the times when we're doing our introspection, our inner work, we're talking about, we got to heal the inner child, which we freaking got to do that. I'm not saying we do not need to do our inner child work. We definitely need to do that because our inner child is where we proceed to gain a lot of our fears in adulthood. Fearing reprimand, neglect, the abuse that we kind of experienced, emotional, physical, mental, all of these kind of things, the manipulations as when we were children. So we definitely need to heal that inner child. However, how often do we actually go, wait a second, what about my inner teenager, right? Teenage years are incredibly fundamental to shaping who you are and your reality today, right? It's also one of the timelines or the time scales that so many people actually bring on inherent insecurities. And these are more the social insecurities, the conformity, and we start to train ourselves as to how to be good people in the eyes of society when we're teenagers. But sometimes being a good person in the eye of society doesn't feel good to us as teens, but yet we continue on because we think that is what we are supposed to do. The teenage mind, and by the way, I'll just let you know, out of all the ages, I absolutely adore teaching teenagers. I resonate with teenagers so much. When I was a kid and I said, hey, what do you want to be for when you grow up? I said I wanted to teach high school. I wanted to teach high school art. And one of the main reasons why I love teaching teenagers is because they are at this brink of absorbing information. They are so, and utilizing it as well, if given the opportunity for them to do so. Just like the stages of going from a baby to a toddler, there's rapid development going on in the brain. There's rapid development going on physically. Teenage years are the next level of that, right? And because they are the next level of that, you can sow such beautiful things when you're a teenager, given the opportunity to do so. But so many people, unfortunately, haven't had that opportunity, right? Because unfortunately, we didn't grow up in times, or in a lot of us didn't grow up in the environments that supported our teenage development, and more so supported the suppression of our teenage selves, or the molding of us into whatever it is society, our parents or whatever wanted us to be. So it was very suppressive time for a lot of people. Hey there, Jem. Hey, Vladimir. Hey, Alana. Lovely to see you. Laura, welcome, welcome, welcome. Alana, you say, what about healing the inner child? I have so much childhood trauma. Yes, now I actually did do a lesson on healing the inner child. That one, if you go onto my video section in my profile, and you should be able to search, and if you were to just type in inner child, the video should actually come up, or that lesson on healing the inner child. So that is definitely still very important to go through. But today, let's have a look at the teenage years. I'm doing very well, Vladimir, although you can tell I'm a little tired, you know, with the dark circles under the eyes, just because it's the new moon time and nobody sleeps until like at least 4 a.m. on the new moon. Period. But other than that, I'm doing fantastic. Hey, Susan, it's lovely to see you as well, sweet pea. Okay, so let's have a look at what it is that we're doing. So firstly, we're going to be looking at how were they hurt? How was our inner teenage child hurt? And let's kind of really open up and share our experiences too on this one, because it is very vast. And this is part of, this class is definitely going to be aiding you in your inner work as well down the line. So it's really good to have open communications, not holding anything back, and just allowing yourself to be like, okay, shit, let me actually address this. So we're going to look at how we were actually hurt, and then how the steps as what we're going to be taking to heal. So let's go firstly to how we were hurt. Now, one of the first things that comes up is force and conformity, right? Now, I'm going to ask you to take yourself back to when you were a teenager. Let's look at the ages between 13 to 17, 18, kind of the time. But more so, I'm thinking really whatever between 13 to 18, whatever age that comes up to you first or naturally. For me, it's around the times that I was about 15, 14 and 15 and so forth that I hone in on, because that's where I'm like, whoa, that's where a lot of my programming was really starting at that time. So think of the time that suits you best in your teenage years. And I want you to think, how often were you forced to do something or told to conform, right? How often was that coming into your mindset? Now, I definitely know that was within me as well. What was I actually forced to do or showed that I had to conform within? Well, social standards of beauty, you know. I was for one, my mother owned a business. And I was so used to doing child labor, which is so, you know, Jared, you say I wanted to run away so many times about the age from 12 to 25. Hey, Dre, sweetheart, welcome. I feel that. I totally feel that, especially like for myself, I wanted to run away. Like I had a horrific abuse like so many of us, you know, it's atrocious. How, like, look at this. Just having a look here. Jared wanted to run away. Karen, running away from home when my parents started to split. Dad cheated. Panhandled, got preggo. The beating my dad. The beating by my dad when I was preggo, and the bad relationship abuse. Like, holy shit. Right? I know, like, definitely we have our hearts in it for our inner children. But think about that. You're a teenager. you're at the cusp where you are able to, you're now big enough and you're grown enough to start to make decisions for yourself. You can start to take care of yourself. You know, you can bathe yourself, feed yourself, you can do things. But at the same time, like this is the time to grow and flourish and be supported within that growth and that independence. But nah, we had to run away. We had to get the beatings. We had to be pushed down so hard for this, and it's just like, what the shit? Jared, parents just don't understand exactly. Now, how many of you are parents now to teenagers and don't understand their children? I was one of these parents when I was asleep and I couldn't connect to my inner teenager or my inner child or that person inside of me. I was distanced. It was hard for me to understand my kids. It was just, kids are kids. They do these things. But it was hard to truly connect and understand. And this is where I think we have a lot of our parents going, you can talk to me, you can open up. And as us teenagers, we're like, no, we fucking can't. Not at all, Charmin, Marian, this is the one, 14 to 17. I love you, Mama Cat. I love you too, girl. Good, let's get this shit out. Charmin, all of the time I was the weird kid, at least according to everybody else. And see, oh my gosh, all of these things. What did all of this do to us? Let's have a look here. Sorry, I want to make sure I get more of the comments. Karen, I'm closer with my son than I am with my parents even today. And oftentimes we do that, especially if we are trapped in that, if we haven't healed that inner teenager, it can be hard to connect to them, but also we want to. Parents, teachers, peers all tried to make me conform. It's sad to think about how much gets squashed during this age, right, Sherman? Dre, I was running the streets, trying to push all that pain down, right? I got pregnant. I was a teen mom myself. I threw myself into, hey, I just wanted to be loved, right? Like, man, it was nuts. A lot of the things that I was forced to do as well. And let's look at some other things that we're forced to do. So we were running, a lot of us clearly were running away from the trauma, but also just think of the other things. This is a time when we start to understand who we are. But when we're told that, no, you have to be a certain way to be pretty. Thank you, kiddo. You have to be a certain way to be pretty. You have to be a certain way to be attractive or desirable. So as a woman, and then as a young man, of course, you've got to be, you got to be tough. You got to be like, you can't cry. You can't show emotions. Also things like, hey, in order to be successful in life, you're going to have to go get a job and go to college and go to university. And there's no other positions out there besides a doctor or a lawyer that you can shoot for. You have to do that, and only then are you successful. If you are creative or if you're artsy fartsy, that's a nice little thing, but it's not really a value. Or how many of you had to live vicariously, your parents were living vicariously through you. And if you didn't live up to their expectations, you were deemed unsuccessful or lazy. Or how many times were you told that you were lazy, or that you were good for nothing, or all of these kinds of things? How many times were we taught this? And just think, again, if we were to say, or if we were to do these things to a baby, right? And if that baby, by the time they were 8, was totally fucked up, we'd be like, oh, well, shit. Look at what we said to that baby. We told them that they can't play with circles. They can only play with squares. And now the kid doesn't know how to use a hula hoop. Oh my gosh, what horrible parenting. But yet when we're teenagers, we don't get that. It's just, oh, you're lazy. You don't know how to do this. You don't know how to do that. And it's atrocious. So, Dre, yes, I have a teenage daughter and it's so freaking hard. Yeah. You know what? Hopefully we're going to get to these parts where it's not as hard. Alana, most of my drama came from childhood, to be honest, childhood trauma. Alana, then perhaps this video, maybe come back to this one a little bit later and go head over to the childhood, the inner child work video. if that's where you feel like you need to be at this very moment, that's what you need to be learning. However, by all means, though, you're still very welcome to watch this one and get what you can from here. Dre, that's why I straight up tell my kids I'm not always going to be the one for you to talk to, but please talk to someone. Ah, yeah. I do try to be the person for my kiddos to talk to, or at least give them as much as I can. But you're absolutely right. Talk to somebody. Jem, abused by both parents, left homeless at 15. I used to wash in the sink at work and used one paycheck a month just to sleep in a drugged out motel. Oh, bless you. I definitely conformed and did things to please others. I didn't know what else to do, period, right? Okay, I've got to get these. I work as a Red Seal stylist at home and my mom still wants me to pick up a job. Karen, I feel you on that. I totally feel you on that. Myself, as a teenager, I had a natural aptitude. I was like, school wasn't difficult for me. I was never a kid that struggled at school or anything like that. Which meant I didn't actually try very hard at school. I was that one kid where it was like, hey, you got to study, and I'm like, no. It felt boring to me and didn't do it. I'm like, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. And I'd usually come out with a B plus or an A. So I thought, what's the point of this? And even though I had a fantastic aptitude, my mom would still, doesn't matter what I accomplished, throughout my life going forward, there was always but maybe you should go to university and get a degree and that will get you a better job. And I'm like, yo, at the time I was like, I'm already like second to the CEO of a company. I travel around the world. Like, what better job do you want me to have? I drive a Mercedes. I do all these things. Like, what do you want from me? And even when I had a business, it was always, you should do more. And it was atrocious. Okay. Oh, yes, I was called everything but a child of God when I was a teenager. Jeez Louise. I was told I was loved, then came the but you aren't good enough. You don't do enough. You just aren't enough. Oh, Jesus, Sharman. Jeez Louise. Sorry, I know I'm just like, because I feel for all these inner teens. Susan, a billion times I had 4 sisters and they were always saying negative things just like that. Mostly my mom, the worst. Me too. My elder sister, she was my idol because I thought she was so beautiful. She was so this and she was so that. But at the same time, there was so much negativity. I had to fit in and be the person. I had to be more like her in order to gain her acceptance. I had to be more like what my mom wanted for me to gain for me to gain her acceptance and all of these things. It's absolutely atrocious. Even though, well, we're gonna have a look at all of this in just a second. And Jared, you say, for a while I'm inspired to run a community or academy like X-Men Academy for young men and outcasts can go to help pitch in living while discovering their gifts. School system traumatized me quite a bit and always made me contemplate this. Right? Oh, you know what? And Dre, I try and they absolutely can talk to me about anything, but I understand that there's things you don't want to talk to a parent about. I accept that. I feel that. I appreciate that, my son is not going to want to talk to me about, inner workings of ladies and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I feel it. And that's why I'm like, yeah, you go talk to anybody you need to. I'll only give you what I can. But going back to Jared there, I feel you on the, and when we're looking at the force of the conformity that school brought towards us, right? My daughter, she told me just the other day that because she was she didn't like a class, and so she stayed over with her on her lunch break by 15 minutes with some of her friends. And anyway, they got caught kind of walking into the school late, and they were told that no, you're going to have to stay in the office now because you're tardy and truant and whatever. And so I got an email from the principal saying that this is what's happening. And I'm like, okay. My daughter comes home, though, And I'm telling her, I'm like, well, you got this email and you had to go spend time in the principal's office because you came in late. Well, you got caught late. Like, this is what it is. And she was saying that her principal said, and how many times have you guys heard this as well? You're not going to amount to anything because you're tardy. You're not going to be able to go to university. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. And I was just like, okay, it's one thing to say, hey, you came in late and you need to follow the rules and now you're going to stay in the office and do your work with the other girls that came in late in the office. But it's another thing to actually use fear and manipulation tactics to say that you are not going to do or you're not going to be anything unless you comply to my wishes, unless you comply to this authority, right? And so that's where I'm like, oh, I'll go have a talk with this teacher, right? And it is straight up indoctrination and programming, right? Hey there, Shanna, sweet pea, welcome, honey. And Sue, welcome, honey. And so that, I'm just like, fuck. And all of us to one degree have felt something like that from the schooling system. Like for myself, oh, you're a teenage mother. Teenage mothers, all you ever do is go on welfare and, or, government assistance. And you're not gonna amount to anything, or you're gonna be shit, and or whatnot. And don't get me wrong, I was 16 with a baby. Yes, I did receive some benefits. I did, because I needed them at the time, because I was 16 with a baby. However, did I amount to nothing? Of course not. Do I have badass children that can't behave themselves in public and are wreaking havoc on the world? Fuck no, my kids are amazing. So that stupid programming that has us as children stressing, conforming, forcing us to move in a direction that isn't our own is, and let's face it, as we are doing that, this is where our lives grow into that pattern as adults. So not only were we facing this hardship as children with the neglect and so forth, but as teenagers, at again this huge developmental stage, we're again shifting our growth and we are now conforming. But the problem is when we're children, we were shifting over to the side of fear, right? So I want you to think let's get this going. You're a little seed, right? That's how you start out. You're a baby. As you grow, we get shifted, and I'm going to go with this. So when we grow, our inner child gets shifted through fear when we are neglected. So we go to the right side. This is the right and this is the left. So we are going to the right side of fear, where we no longer have the security and safety within our parents because, neglect and abuse that's happening. And then as we still are growing into teenagers, we now, because of that fear, we go over to the left where we start to self-block ourselves, and this is where conformity happens, right? And then as we conform, we try our best to straighten ourselves out, but then the fear comes in and so forth, and then as a plant, we've grown all sorts of wonky, needing support when we're in fear, support when we're in self-blocking, and then going back to fear and needing more support to hold us back up, right? So we can see how our experiences are shaping us. But let me just remove that there. Okay. Jared, imagine most kids that have parents that always side and agree with the school. It's terrible for kids. That's why I rebelled a lot and had anarchy so much in my personality. I feel that. See, it was the same thing with myself, right? I was just like, it didn't make sense to me. So that's why I was just like, I don't give a shit. I'm not taking this class if it's not worthy of me, or if it's not bringing me any sort of benefit. And if I could see that as a teenager, if I could see that when I was 15, to this day, I still have not used my high school French. Which I had to go to summer school for because I hated my high school French teacher. She was absolutely atrocious. I didn't respect her as a teacher. So I rebelled against that, and I just did silent civil disobedience where I'm like, nope, you'll just have to find me if you want me. I won't make up a storm. But anyway, let's have a look at Shane. Me too, Jared. I dropped out of school at 14. I need to get these thingies. And after going to an at-risk youth program, oh goodness, that's for Shanna. Dre, I'm fighting with my kids' school right now about bullying. They're basically showing them just to tolerate abuse. And here's Mama Bear like, nope, I think not. Yes, right though? Shanna, bullying wounded me to the core, working through those wounds at 40. I feel that so much, even with my kids, right? Oof. You know what? That is definitely another, and like we could talk all day about that one. But okay, let's proceed on here. So now we can see where we through our collective experiences here and just sharing this brief, in only just a few minutes, we've seen like, wow, teenagers are forced to do a lot of shit. We don't like, it comes through from a lot of bad shit. Like we're forced to do a lot. So now, how else are we actually hurt? Incomplete cycle abuse. What does that actually mean, incomplete cycle abuse? In order for anything to grow, it needs to complete a cycle, right? Everything has to complete a cycle. A baby has to go through baby stages of eating and sleeping all the time, getting super, super fat and chubby and cute, so that they have enough energy to shoot up into being a toddler and a kid, right? Same thing mentally, right? Have you know, like, you know that that part, that instinct within you, I forget what it's physically called, but you know that part of your brain that wants to always complete a cycle. So if you were to start a song, you know, happy birthday, you know, like your brain is going to automatically want to complete the cycle, right? If you know the song, you're going to want to complete it. And we are hardwired to do this. However, when we are teenagers, the abuse comes because we are suppressed from completing our natural cycles. And if we're suppressed from completing our natural cycles of that stage of development, we tend to not be able to grow. This is where we start growing wonky, or where we are suppressing ourselves or blocking ourselves. So what is a cycle of an incomplete cycle? So for example, naturally, and I'm talking about nature versus what is being actually stopped here. Let me take a minute to drink some tea. So let's think of some of that. Right? One of the cycles that I personally, and please share some of the cycles that you wanted to complete, that you wanted to experience, but never had the opportunity to do so. So one of the cycles that I never got to complete was my expressions of anger, or to be honest, my expressions in general, right? But at that time, because, you know, as a kid, you don't understand. Anger comes when you don't understand. It's just like, yeah, I don't, and you try to learn it. Now, when I was a teenager, I was holding in a lot of anger, and I didn't even realize it because I was never allowed to complete the expression of anger. It was, oh, if you're angry, cut that out. You know, oh, you can't do that. You can't, that's not how a lady behaves. That's not, you don't say those things. You know, you cannot complete that cycle. And because I wasn't able to complete that cycle, I numbed out to my anger. And let's remember, anger is like your nerves in your vessel. You know, when it hurts and it pinches, it's to say, hey, something is being damaged, so stop that, right? But for myself, I was emotionally, I was not able to complete that cycle of learning how to control my own anger and how to manage my own emotions, because they were always stopped, right? It was always, nope, you can't do that. You know, how dare you say something, or how dare you want to say anything to your parents or to the authority. You know, I come from, you know, I was raised, you know, by a black mother. So, and I'm not saying anything, but, you know, for those of you who have also been raised in melanated households, you say anything that goes against your mother, psh, or your parents in general, you gonna get some physical beatings. And I'm not saying that that's just like, there's a lot of people that go through it, but I'm just saying like, yo, I was one of those people that was so commonplace within my home that I thought it was absolutely normal. And then when my friends, because I lived in a predominantly Caucasian neighborhood, when my friends would tell me, when they were just like, when you hear your friend go, "Shut up, mom," I was like, holy shit. Like, I could never do that. You would never see me again. I would be like buried in the garden somewhere. Like, oh, what? You wouldn't see me. So anyway, I couldn't express that or complete that cycle. So again, what I did learn though was to suppress my anger, which when I suppressed my anger, it meant I became complacent as an adult. It meant that I literally would always shrug things off and just be like, oh, even though if I was hurt or even if I was attacked or whatever, it would just be like, and just sit there and allow it to happen. Because again, I didn't get the cycle completed. I also, my creativity, right? I wanted to be very, very creative. I love to paint. I love to sing. I love to dance. And I love to do all those things. But my creative streaks were again suppressed because they had to go in line with whatever it was. Am I creating for school? Okay, creating for school is fine. But can I create just in my own little bits and pieces? Sure. You have a pencil and a piece of paper. Can I go out and work with spray paints and spray paint a wall and I admired, the people who were tagging stuff, as a teenager to express their art. Was I able to do that? No. I couldn't complete that cycle, right? So I want you to think, how many cycles have you tried to complete, but you are unable to do it? Tamiki, damn, I've been growing wonky for a long damn time. I feel that. Jared, like a tree growing bent like a horseshoe because there's a dead tree that fell on top of it. Yes, exactly. Okay, let me see. But anywho, okay, so that's again how we are hurt because we are we aren't allowed to complete the cycles. Or even think of another one. I just want to put this out there as well. Think of if you were so interested in something. For me, it was arts, right? What if you were interested in baking? What if you were interested in dirt and just being outside in the bugs? What if you were interested in writing or reading, right? But at the same time, your parents or the people around you said, no, 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 no. You can't do art because there's no money in it. You need to go and study more. No, you can't do just baking. Like, yeah, you can bake some things, but come on, that's not a real job. What are you going to do? Work in the grocery store baking stuff? Like, nah, go do something else. Why are you playing in the dirt so much? Get your backside inside and clean up and do your this and do your that. And your suppression of what it is that you wanted to experience, again, an incomplete cycle. Now that is really important because when we have an incomplete cycle, we are bound to repeat it, for one. So again, I came back to the cycle within my art where I'm just like, okay, well now that I'm grown, I'm going to express myself the way that I should have done when I was a kid. So now I'm going to start my growth off from here. And how many of you now are just like, wow, I do not like the life that I have been living in terms of career, in terms of the gifts and the skills that you have, because you never got to really fulfill that growth process in the first place. So have a think about that. Now, on next, emotional neglect. That is another way our inner teenager is hurt. Now, emotional neglect comes from, just as we mentioned, the suppression of not allowing ourselves to complete that cycle, right? Our teenagers are going through, and us as teenagers, we were going through so many different emotions because our little brains at the time were expanding so much that we can understand more things. We could take more cues from body language, from from what we hear, from what we are, just from the expressions that we see, from life around us. We're taking in so much information because this is the energy to catapult us into adulthood. But yet, at the same time, raise your hand if you were taught how to manage your emotions. Raise your hand if you felt comfortable enough to actually say, hey, this is mom, dad, or person at school or friend, or this is what I'm feeling. And I don't know what it is. There's not very many of us who can raise our hand. Though for the ones who can raise your hands, fuck, awesome. That you are one of those unicorns. And I think bless the shit out of you. You need to share how it feels to actually feel that. But at the same time, for those of you who have not been taught how to manage your emotions, or gain that navigation, where did we learn it from? We learned it from the only other people that we were comfortable and feeling safe communicating with, and that was usually our friends and our peers. But the thing is, our peers were going through the same shit. So we're babies teaching babies, children teaching children how to be adults. And as you can tell, this is why very many of us are still children in adult bodies trying to navigate our emotions, right? Because we were taught to neglect them. And then, of course, half the time that's what happens is when we've neglected our emotions, or we could only just kind of sort it out however way we could find best to sort it out. When we have our own kids, we tend to not know how to manage their emotions or how to navigate their emotions. And this is one of the reasons why so many people say, oh gosh, teenagers, I was fearful back in the day. I was like, shit, what am I going to do when my kids turn are teenagers? I was expecting them to be out of control. I was expecting them to go through mood swings and ups and downs and this and that, because that's what teenagers do. And it's like, of course not. They just don't know how to manage them. And I was really blessed that the fact that I'm like, oh, at least I'm pleased now that at least I have the conscious maturity in order to help my kids manage their emotions now. But still, think of that. We neglected our emotions because Karen, yes, feeling out of control, highly emotional, and like that. And it's just like, what do we do when we feel distressed or stressed? A lot of people, they shut down and they don't look at it, right? That's what I did. And hence why I numbed the shit out throughout my teenage years up into my adult years. And it only took me till I was like 30 to actually realize, oh shit, I have emotions. They are useful. Dre, no, I'm learning in my 30s how to properly communicate. Right. Jared, yes, very true. Very hard for my peers and men in general to express love among another without thinking it may be gay or feminine. Exactly. Oh shit, because I'm coming from a feminine perspective, or a female's perspective, but I can only imagine, what our young guys are going through, as well. At least when we're with our girlfriends as kids, we talk to our girlfriends and so forth. There's an open line of communication, but a lot of guys nah, you can't talk to each other. I will say that's one thing I absolutely adore my son for, because he will sit down with his friends and just be like, yo, man, what's going on? I'm like, oh, that's my baby. One second, you guys. I'm just going to close my door. Because that's what my cat likes to do. She likes to bust her butt in here and leave the door. But okay, so let's, let me grab this back down there. Okay, so emotional neglect. And lastly, how are our teenagers hurt? Fuckery. Lies. Lies upon lies upon lies, such as you're never going to amount to anything if you don't fit this mold in this box. Total lie. If you try to discover your own body and the pleasures of your own body, your hands are going to get, your hands are going to grow fur, and everybody's going to know that you're a masturbator. And to shame it. Oh my gosh. Lies. Telling young boys that, all they do is think about sex and that girls do not at all. It's like lies. Girls think about it just as much, telling young men that, oh, hey, to be a strong man, you got to suppress your emotions. Lies! Telling a young lady that in order to be proper and to be, accepted by society, she needs to be sweet, dainty, and to be whatever that they whatever shit that they want to say. Lies! Telling you that, what's another thing? Telling you that you're not valued. Lies. Atrocious lies. Telling you that you're just a kid and you don't know how to love. Lies. What are some other lies that you were told? Total fuckery. That you just, as an adult, you're just like, what the fuck? How did I even, that bullshit, right? Cassie, Cassie, you're learning in your 40s. I feel that. I was a teen mom, and my God, I didn't realize how flight or fight throughout my life. I feel that. And because, again, all of this stuff, how we were hurt, we conformed, we didn't get allowed to complete our cycles, emotional neglect, and lies all over the place. What that breeds is a shit ton of insecurity, right? Because of course, we want to grow straight up, but we're told, no, we've got to do this and we've got to swerve. And so, of course, whenever we're in a place of insecurity, that is fight or flight mode. Some will fight and they become defensive and aggressive. Others will just run and avoid any situation that makes them feel uncomfortable, right? And it comes from all of this shit right here. Yep, that shit is ridiculous. Unless you have a husband. Oh, shit. Yes. That shit, one of the main, again, because of my type of abuse, it was a lot of, because I went through a lot of the sexual abuse and romantic abuses and so forth like that, never taught how to truly connect with another individual and maintain a relationship. So hence I was very reclusive because my empathy was so strong, but I shielded myself by blocking off of my emotions, and what the huge insecurities that I gained had everything to do with love and romance and building that connection. And so I was heavily affected, and I realize that now, like I cleared out a lot of insecurities, but now in my 30s, am I working through teenage insecurities when it comes to love and relationships as to how to be, how to stand within within myself and my own grounds and so forth, and still be able to receive and accept love and not be so defensive against it, right? So loads of insecurities are achieved when we are in our teenage years, and if we are building off of an insecurity, which is an unstable foundation, it just means all the way up into our adulthood, we are constantly trying to hold ourselves up, right? Always trying to seek support in some way because we have not had that security to support ourselves, which is like, shit. Cassie, self-sabotage is another one. Yes. Karen, I self-destroy. Fuck, yeah, right though? And that's the shitty part. The self-sabotage as a teenager goes right into the force and conformity, right? And the fuckery. And the fact that we're neglecting ourselves because we think that, oh no, in order to grow crooked, that's the right way to grow. So we sabotage ourselves from growing straight because we're like, no, I have to conform. This is the way, this is how I get to be successful in life. And it sucks so bad because so many kids feel and can see the absolute nonsense. So many teenagers, if you were to say, hey, if you were to get a group of teenagers, sit them down and give them a totally open space to speak, where you're like, yo, you can say anything you want right now. Give me your honest perspective and opinion on some or whatever that's going on in the world. And I tell you, the perception when they are open and honest to grow straight, fucking amazing. And I say it again, fucking amazing. when you see the young mind come into fruition and work and formulate and grow, they're absolutely amazing. And here we are trying to suppress them and put them into a box because our parents and their parents before them didn't know how to change, didn't accept change because of the pride and the ego of whatever it is that they're going through and the trauma that they went through and the cycles persist. My goodness, I honestly say, as an individual that is, I work really, really well with teenagers, especially like some of my clients will bring their kids in to see me as well, just to have a private session and talk. And oh my goodness, when they're in a safe environment, all I can say is people literally say that kids don't know anything. And I'm like, no, they are magnificent. We just have to be able to see it. Because, yeah, Cassie, children were seen, not heard exactly. But, well, they were neither seen nor heard, really, truly for themselves. They were just molded. Dre, it was never learn yourself and what you love. It was you have to be this way and that way or nobody will want to marry you. Getting a husband was the focus, not finding my own value independent from someone else. Fuck. Isn't that some fuckery? Right? You're absolutely right. And it is so very sad. You know what? I do remember, I had the figure of, I had a very athletic figure when I was a kid. You know, although I had curves and I had breasts and so forth, I still had my same shape, but it was very like strong and athletic. And I think of all the things that I could have accomplished with that young youthful vessel. I already was so interested in martial arts. I was interested in movement, sports, this and that, all these things. I had a physique of a young goddess. And I'm like, shit, that body could have taken me to so many places, done so many things, you know, such wellness I could have happened. But you know what my mom told me? She said, oh, you've got a body the man will like it. You've got the figure all the men are going to want. That's it. I'm like, I look back at that now. Don't get me wrong. She was only expressing herself the way she is. So I hold nothing against my mom. Absolutely nothing. I'm the cycle breaker in my family. So that's I could gladly accept that. And I did. So I hold nothing against my mom, right? Absolutely nothing. But I do go back to that and just be like, wow, I can see where I grew wonky. Oh, hey, Ricochet, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Actually, Orfern gave me this one. Jared, my high school times on the bus were something. It was a girl and boys side and we had to be silent. It was public school but felt like a nun at a Catholic school. I used the ride every day for meditation. You know what? I'm so glad that you at least did that. Because shit. A lot of kids, they sit there and just wonder what the next order is going to be. Okay. So, now, we went through all of the why we were hurt. So I'm not going to keep you here on your Sunday for so much longer. Let's go as to how to heal this. Now, first things first. We have acknowledged that our inner teenager has went through some shit. Because we've always acknowledged our inner child went through some shit. But now, today, we're like, nope. You know what? My inner teenager has went through some atrocious shit. So, how do we reset this? How do we heal this part? First, we need to reset the boundaries, right? When you have been molded and conformed, you have been put into a box, right? So first things first, analyze, wait a second. What are my boundaries? What will I accept in now and what will I not accept, right? Be really solid with that. And just think, and you do have to kind of go back over your teenage years and just be like, okay, when I was a teenager, I didn't have any boundaries as to how other people treated me. If they treated me like shit, then I thought, you know, it was my fault in some way, and I needed to come out and please this person or appease them. That was coming from the inner child, you know, of course, wanting to appease the abuser and everything like that. However, I still did that when I was a teenager at the same time. So now, reset my boundaries. I'm like, wait a second. No. You have to, in order to get past this wall, you are going to demonstrate respect. You are going to demonstrate courtesy and understanding. You are going to treat me the way I'm treating you, which is respect. And if you cannot do that, you don't get past this wall. And that's what it is. Whether that be emotional, mental, romantic, physical, my boundaries are set, and it is all about self-loving of myself, right? So reset those boundaries. If you've got some flimsy boundaries as a teenager, nope. You come back in and you just like, this shit is not going to be accepted in my world, right? And my world's full of good stuff. So that's one thing to do. So first, reset your boundaries. Second, you are going to listen. Now, this is going back to what Dre, was it Dre that said, who said seen, oh yeah, sorry, no, that was Cassie. Cassie said children are seen and not heard. How many times as a teenager were you told to just shut up and listen? Nope. And you're supposed to simply just follow. How often did you actually get listened to, that you fully were able to express, fully just able to say what it is that you want to say in the way that you want to say it without any holdbacks? And again, oftentimes we didn't have that. So when you are looking, once you have reset your boundaries, you need to look back at your teenage self and just be like, yo, all of the things I wanted to say as a teenager, I'm sitting here and I'm listening now. I'm going to listen to me because I wasn't listened to as a kid. So, and that's another thing, because again, this is inner healing work, right? So this is your own personal work. You have to listen to yourself. So you may have the thoughts of a teenager just ramble through your mind. Truly listen to them, right? Engage. And so there's a difference between just hearing somebody and listening, right? When you're listening, you're actively taking in the information so that you can process it and so you can formulate your own perspective on that information. Right? When you're just hearing something, which is what we do at school, we hear it, it comes in one ear, we log it, it goes out the other way, but we're just hearing it and then repeating it, but we're not really formulating our own ideas or perspective on it. So listen to that inner child, listen to that inner teenager that you have, right? Hear her out, hear him out. If he starts to be really angry, if he wants to say, fuck the world, fuck this, I hate things, blah, 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 listen. Just be like, all right, let it out, let it out. Give yourself that opportunity to do that. Andre, a boundary I have for myself is that I no longer allow other people to tell me who I am. Fuck yeah. That's exactly that's what it is about, right? That's of course, one of my boundaries too, is just like, I am me. Absolutely no perspective or other opinion based on my own perspective of myself can change that. So you're absolutely right. Well done on that boundary. That's a good one to have. So yes, listening. After you've listened to that inner teenager say what he or she, whatever they have wanted to say without any holdbacks, even if you're just like, oh, that sounds so mean, doesn't matter. You allow that inner teen to speak, right? They deserve to be heard. Number 3, you're going to feel them. So this is where, once you're listening to them, you're connecting your cognitive ability here. You're processing the information to be like, okay, I'm listening. I'm understanding the information you're telling me. Now you got to connect your heart, your empathy, your feelings, your emotions, to feel what they're going through, because this is why, this goes into the emotional neglect that kids had. They were, when you were to tell your parents like, hey, I'm having a hard time. So many emotions were going on, within you at the time that created that hard time. So your parents will look at it and just be like, oh yeah. You know what? You think you're having it hard. You just wait till you're adult and you have to go to work and you got to do this and you got to do that. Who wanted to hear that as a kid? Nobody. As a teen, nobody wanted to hear like, oh, to disregard your own emotions and how you're feeling because it's always worse somewhere else. Like, how many times did you hear that? You could have had it, like, it could be worse. It's like, yes, It could be worse, but it still feels like shit now. So let's process this, you know? So when you feel them, you are truly connecting to them and their emotions. Because once you can feel it, you can then start to understand at an even deeper level why your inner teenager was going through the things that they were going through. You know, and this is going to be for some of you out there, especially the empaths out there. You know, when I connected back to my inner teenager when I was 15, so much anger, right? And I never got to say the things like, you know, my sisters and my mom, like my sisters were absolutely atrocious. My mom was really abusive and neglectful. My dad, of course, was a pedophile. So it was just like, it was all over the place. And one thing I always got told was, you only have one family, right? You only got one family, and you got to love them, and you got to respect and honor your parents, and you got to do all those things, and, you know, but they're your sisters and everything like that. And so I suppressed myself, and I was like, oh, okay, numb myself out. But what I really wanted to do when I talked to that inner teenager was go, fuck this. I hate my family. I hate all of this shit. Like, I don't, like, fuck them. You know? And that was the truth in what I was feeling at the moment. Do I say that now? You know, with my experience with my family, do I hate my mom? Do I hate my sisters? Do I hate anybody? No, of course not. However, I needed to feel her inside to understand. I'm like, ah. And then when I understood that, I felt the numbness that she had. Totally numb. And I was just like, yo, sweet pea, you know, life isn't going to be like this all the time. And I was my inner adult in that moment, or myself speaking to my teenager, just being like, guess what? You actually do really, really well. You know, you got great kids. You got a lot of people that love you. You get to teach like you've always wanted to. And you get to help people grow, and all of the bits and pieces. And my inner teenager was just like, oh, you know what? Good. Life isn't always like this. You know, that kind of thing. And I got there because I was able to feel myself. So please feel yourself. Orthoa, I have the walk away syndrome. That's where the tolerance eats me up, right? Right. When we tolerate so fucking much, and then we just walk away and hopefully push it to the side because we don't want to see it anymore. We don't want to address it anymore. We don't want to deal with it anymore. Right? Even that, feel her. That kid that was just like, nope, I'm going to just tolerate it. Nah, you got to let her come out and just be like, you know what? You don't have to tolerate shit. Right? This is going to be a really good thing. Because as soon as when you feel that energy of, wow, I don't have to tolerate anything in your inner teenager kind of release, you feel an overwhelming strength of like, yeah, I don't have to tolerate fucking shit. It feels good. Tamiki, as a young adult, people would just look at me and ask, why are you so angry? And I didn't get it until I started looking at myself. I was holding on to some shit from early years. Right? And the thing is like, again, not being felt, just being felt on the surface, like you're angry, but not really being truly looked into on a deeper level. Oh, Clariston, no, welcome thank you for joining. I know it's probably like really, really late where you are right now, so welcome, sweet pea. But yeah, and so many of us are holding on to that shit, right? It's atrocious. So after we felt them and connected our emotions, because then we could really empathize, right? And it's like, oh gosh, you do feel me. Number 4, be honest, right? We're literally combating the fuckery that we had experienced. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of us have already overcome the lies, you know, that we were told as teenagers, you know, all of that. We've already kind of uncovered the truth. But what we need to do in this moment is we need to be so freaking honest, you know, to ourselves in this moment while we're doing this work, right? So, for example, your inner teenager has psychic abilities, right? The empathy in your inner teenager is very strong. The sentience, the feelings, the emotions, they are very strong. Again, it was strong in that moment because it was meant to catapult you into a place of, your true strength as an adult, right? So for myself, for example, I was a seer, or not was, I am a seer, but I didn't realize how difficult it was to manage emotions when you're swimming in a bunch of horseshit, right? But I got so used to, because of the conformity, and because I was so used to not completing my cycles and neglecting myself emotionally and dealing or tolerating the lies, I learned how to do that as an adult, right? And this is where so many people, we learn how to lie to ourselves in order to keep the conformity going. And the thing is, if you try to lie to your inner teenager, this is where it doesn't, this is where the healing doesn't happen as fast, because if we are lying to ourselves the way that we were lied to as children, we then don't trust ourselves. All right? I'm going to put that out there again. If you lie to yourself the way that you were lied to as a teenager, as a child, you then don't trust yourself because you know you are lying to yourself. And we automatically know, every child knows that you don't trust a liar, right? So then when we are adults, we're wondering why we have such self-trust issues. It makes sense, right? We literally ask ourselves, why don't I trust myself? Why is it so hard to trust myself? Because we keep lying to ourselves. What do we lie to ourselves about? We lie to ourselves about how much stress and fear we can manage and take. How much tolerance that we can actually go through. We tell ourselves, no, it's fine. It's okay, it's all right, when it never was. We accept bullshit that we never wanted to accept. We lie. That's a lie to ourselves, right? This is some lying bullshit. So because of that, again, we lose the trust. So to heal ourselves, be honest. If there is something that is rocking you in terms, like, for example, if my inner teenager right now was to ask me, hey, what are the kind of, like, what are we supposed to be doing in the future, right? I would say to them right now, you know what? I know we're supposed to be doing some great things, but at the same time, I'm not going to tell you word for word what it is that we're going to do, because who knows? It's the flow. But what I can tell you is that I trust myself and I trust the flow. I trust my energy, right? Because look at all the things that we have accomplished, despite the fear and oppression, subjugation, abuse that we've went throughout our life, So I'm going to trust my strength. We're going to trust in this. And that would be like, all right, I get that. That's cool. And this is what I love. And Kelly, hi, sweetheart. Thank you so much. I love the fact that you love these lessons. And thank you for coming in and joining in with us. This is great. But going back to the honesty part, though. Oh, never mind. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, we'll come back to that. So, again, as we can see, though, being honest with ourselves is incredibly important. Not to lie to yourself, not to basically do all of this shit back again. Now, which, after you're honest, then it goes into number 5, taking responsibility, right? Tell me that is not a, like, fuck, right? We gotta take responsibility, because that's what adults do. That's what the teenage years are about. It is the transition from being a child to being an adult. And learning to take responsibility is one of the key things into healing that inner child, because when the inner teenager doesn't take responsibility, it halts the growth process, right? Because we're still saying to ourselves as teens, well, it's not my fault, it's that this is happening, it's their fault or this fault or the situation's fault, right? And if we don't take responsibility, we can never really grow fully into the true power that we have, because we are, once we get to that level of awakening and adulthood consciously, we realize we are entirely responsible for the every experience that we have within this dimension, within this creation. So if we are constantly responsible as an adult, when did our teenagers learn this? Right? So take responsibility for your actions. Take responsibility for everything as much as you can within your own creation, because that means you are also taking your power, right? Because if you are responsible for it, then you are also responsible for changing it if you don't like it, right? And you can change it if you don't like it. You do not have to tolerate the shit that you did when you were a teenager, when you were being forced to conform, right? You don't have to do that. So as you take responsibility, you take your power. And you take everything that comes along with that power to stop bullshit and to produce love and joys and grow in a fulfilling way, right? So whatever it is, try your best to take responsibility. Now, you may tell me that, well, Kulipa, my inner teenager wasn't responsible for the abuse that I had taken and all of that shit. You're absolutely right. Your inner teenager, if you grew up in this, like some of you have said, like Tamiki said, like, you were homeless, you had to go onto the streets. Hey, the circumstance as to how you were raised, that you could not help that, right? You were not, although we chose the families that we were born into, but when your memory is wiped and you're blank and you're coming back into this world, no, you cannot control those situations. However, you can take responsibility now for processing the experiences that you had. Like I say, I got pregnant at 16 years old, right? And the circumstances with the torrential amount of abuse and rape that I experienced, you'd be like, holy shit, I'm surprised I didn't have like 5 kids by the time I was 21. But at the same time, I do take responsibility for my action in the fact that I did reproduce life, And now that I've taken responsibility for that, I can then live within that responsibility in my own way, which suits me far more, which is producing a far better result, right? So hence why we take responsibility. And lastly, number 6, show them what you're made of. I really enjoy this part, right? To heal that inner teenager, we must show them who we are now, right? So that not only because we've set the boundaries, we've talked to that inner teenager, was like, no, we've reset our boundaries. Like, yo, kid, you don't have to do this shit no more. We've listened to them. We've heard our inner teenager. We felt them, and based off those feelings, we are honest with them as to what's going on now. What happened in that moment, correcting all the times that we were turned this way and that way. We're like, no, we're just going to correct our stems. We're going to do that because we're honest. Then we took responsibility for that action of correction and showing them like, yo, trust this, trust me, I've got this. And they will, the inner teenager, just think about it, there has not been one teenager that I know of in my adult years that I didn't vibe with, and if they're, no, don't get me wrong, there are some where I'm just like, ooh, I don't like you. So children, don't bring that friend over anymore. But, when you actually connect with a teenager, a heart, oh my goodness, there is not one that has not looked upon me with nothing but, please, I love the guidance. I love the care. I love all of those things. And you see them do such wonderful things. There was, there's, kids who are told that they're the baddest kids ever. Oh, I got that all the time. When I owned my salon and I was a hairdresser, people would bring in their daughters, or some of the kids and just be like, they're terrible. I don't know how you're going to manage this. They're, like for example, they'd be my clients first and tell me about their teenage daughter or tell me about their son or something like that. And like, oh, I'll bring them in to do their hair someday because I've just had enough. I can't do it anymore. And they're just like, they're so tender. They're telling me their children are difficult. And as soon as that child would come to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? They're freaking dreams, man. You've got a beautiful child here. Like, what are you complaining about? Like, why? Right? So I'm like, when you actually follow these steps, and I actually recommend doing this if you have if you're a parent of teenagers now, follow these steps with them, you know, because when you get down to 6, show them what you're made of. That's when it's just like, all right, I got trust in myself, I've got trust in the process. Let's roll with this. Let's grow and let's see how far. Let's see how strong. Let's see where we can be, because we are me right now, right? Show them what you're made of. Show that inner self what you're made of. Tamiki, this is one of the family cycles I didn't break because I was unaware of conformity. Now I have to help my teenagers. You know what? I feel it, but I say, doesn't matter when you start. If you can start right now, you will not only help them, but you will help you, right? So that they will not become us here now when we are in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, trying to understand how to heal, how to be teenagers and grow from that stage, right? But anywho's this is what I have for you today. Thank you so much. I know I've kept you a few more minutes than necessary. My recommendation is, as we are now understanding where our inner teenager was hurt and how to heal them, go into a meditation. Now, I do have a healing in the inner child kind of meditation. However, I think I need to redo that one, actually. Redo one just for general inner child. No, I have a general inner child work one, but now I will redo a meditation for teenagers as well. However, get yourself into a meditative state. Relaxed, nice and comfortable. If you smoke some weed, maybe have a little puff. Whatever you're doing just to get yourself nice and relaxed. Breathe and start to really feel. Now, when you're in there, all I want you to do is just from the same time that at the very beginning of this lesson I said, hey, what stage as a teenager comes to you first? For myself, it was the ages of 14 and 15. For some it was 14 to 17. Others it may have been 13 or 18. Whatever stage that comes to you first, feel yourself in this meditation and just be like, all right, let me have a look. Where was I forced into or conforming? What cycle in that time was I not able to complete? Was there emotional neglect? And what lies were told to me at that point? Right? And then go, okay, let's reset this. Let me reset my boundaries. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to feel you. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to take responsibility. And now let me show you what I'm made of. Just as you're meditating, have this conversation. I promise you, afterwards, you're going to feel a shitload lighter. And some of the insecurities that you have been taking since you were a kid will feel a lot less, you'll feel a lot more stable, right? And it'll help you on there. So anyways, I do hope that helps for today's Sunday lesson. And if you can get this meditation in before the new moon tomorrow, you will find that it will do wonders for your energy. And no doubt you're going to have a lot of ringing in your left ear and also some ringing in your right ear. But I would definitely say you're going to have a lot of ringing in your left ear as you complete this. Now, for those of you who are looking for a little extra help upon your spiritual awakening journey, then please head up to the website. You can have a look and see what it is that I can offer you. If you'd like to book in for a session, definitely do so. Clanisha, you'll book soon. I hope so. I look forward to it. And also, for those of you who are looking for ongoing, like longer term ongoing support, this was a question that I had. I've actually been getting multiple people asking me is like, hey, can I do private lessons with you on a regular basis? And yes, you can. I've just created the packages because I thought, you know what? If you want to book long-term lessons, then let me give you a little bit of a discount on the regular rates. So you can now book in like multiple sessions over a month, over 3 months, over 6 months, or over 12 months. All of that is also on the website as well, so you can have a look there. And also there's some learning support and documents to go through as well. Now, if you are enjoying these spiritual awakening classes, but you're like, wow, I really wish there was a book form of this, I am writing that book. So if you would like to make a contribution to help me write that, donations are so very much so welcomed and appreciated. And also, I absolutely adore you for sharing as well. That really does help me, especially get my lessons and get my words out to those who may need them. So, hey, if you can't donate, that is okay. But if you can share, I love you to pieces as well. Thank you so much. Right, so the next time I will be back here is going to be Tuesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, and 5 p.m. PST. For our next Spiritual Awakening class number 41. I'm not quite sure what we're going to teach at that time, but we will get there. If you do have any suggestions as to what you would like to learn, please send me a message, or you can pop it on my profile wall. Just be like, yo, I would love a class on whatever it is that you want to learn. And I'm more than happy, if it is within my capacity to teach it, I will definitely do so. But yes, hi Nicole, sweetheart. Yes, watch the replay, my dear. I hope you do enjoy it. Right, that is it for me. Have a great, great Sunday afternoon, you guys, and I love you to pieces. Bye, honey buns.